I never imagined my translation would leave a billionaire speechless. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The skies hung heavy with rain, as if the universe was weeping for what was about to unfold. My heart raced in my chest. It felt like I was drowning in anticipation and dread all at once. The kind of weight that makes your hands tremble and your breath hitch. I stood there, staring at my phone, the words scrolling through my mind like a mad, chaotic symphony. I was going to present at the international conference, and a billion eyes would witness my every falter. But it was more than just the pressure of the crowd. It was him. Lucian Blackwood. The youngest billionaire in the room, possessing secrets darker than the sky above. I once saw him snaps of his lavish lifestyle on social media, gleaming cars, penthouses, and undeniable allure. No one truly knew what made him tick. All I knew was that he had this magnetic presence that could freeze a crowd with just a glance. Today, he was supposed to be listening to my translation of a monumental speech, and the weight of my voice felt heavier than the world on my shoulders. Hours passed in a flurry, colored by the inky black shadows of doubt. I glanced at familiar faces in the audience, my family shimmering in supportive smiles, though I sensed their underlying worry. My best friend Ava clutched her phone, biting her nails as if each moment dragged closer to a cliff's edge. And my mother, her hands intertwined, her eyes pleading for me to rise above my own fear. "Just breathe," she whispered as I passed by, her voice soothing but muffled by the screams in my head. Then, everything spiraled into madness. I began my translation, the words tumbling out, pouring from my soul. Each phrase held the power to change lives. Each pause resonated with an electric charge. And there, right in front of me, Lucian's icy blue gaze fixed upon me, absorbing every syllable, and just for a fleeting instant, his expression shifted. Was it shock? Stunned disbelief? The air around me thickened, and I could see the crowd tense, breath held in unison. Then the unthinkable happened. Lucian raised a hand, and the entire hall fell silent. No coughs, no whispers. Just a cosmic silence as he moved towards me, each step echoing like a drumbeat in my chest. My heart raced faster, a crescendo of fear. What could I have possibly said? Did I cross a line? He reached me, his voice low and gravelly, slicing through the thick tension. "What did you just say?" The world oscillated between the murmur of the audience and the pounding in my ears. I choked on my words. Something told me I had unlocked a truth, a dangerous secret buried deep within his enigmatic aura. My eyes searched his face, where confusion turned into an intrigued glimmer, shadows managed to flicker into something almost human. I realized that, for once, I was not the one struggling to express myself. I had struck a chord within him, but why? In that moment, everything teetered on the brink of revelation. The truth waited tantalizingly close, shrouded in mystery, ready to unfold. What had I uncovered? What lies beneath that polished, billionaire surface? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. I stood there, riveted to the spot, as if time itself had conspired to keep me frozen in that tense moment. The audience's collective breath seemed to pull the very air out of my lungs, filling me instead with an ominous nervousness. Lucian's gaze pierced through the fog of uncertainty swirling in my mind, igniting a flicker of hope, yet drowning it under the weight of fear. He was a man who commanded entire rooms, a force of nature known for bending the world to his will. And I was about to unravel a secret that could either free him or shatter the already fragile glass of my own life. "What did you just say?" he repeated, his voice carrying a weight that sent shivers down my spine. In that moment, a part of me wanted to retreat, to retract the words I had so confidently spoken, thoughts racing frantically. What had I revealed? Pushing my fear aside, I took a breath, gathering the fragments of courage that I could muster. I translated the sentiments of the original speech. I managed, though each syllable felt like a betrayal to some unseen pact between us. I captured what it truly means. Toto what? Lucian pressed, impatience tinged with intrigue lighting his eyes. The audience hovered on the brink of curiosity, their attention shifting from me to the man who had the power to upend everything. I had delved into his soul, and somehow, I wanted to hold on to this fragile thread connecting us. Suddenly, doubt crept in like an unwelcome intruder. Maybe Lucian was not the enigmatic force I had imagined. Perhaps he, too, was human, vulnerable, and battling his own demons. My thoughts spiraled, grappling with the enormity of the moment. I could feel the weight of my family's anxious stares burning into my back like a fiery spotlight. A hush fell over the hall, each face reflecting a spectrum of emotions: concern, curiosity, disbelief. I reached out, hoping to bridge the distance not just between me and Lucian, but all those who had come to witness this critical moment. What hurts you? I managed to croak, a question born of instinct, and perhaps a deeper intuition. Would he see the part of me that wanted to offer solace? Would he allow me to traverse the walls built around his heart? Lucien's expression shifted again, that frantic flicker of something I couldn't quite place. Was it anger? Fear? Or was it the gentle crack of hope peeking through a lifetime of pain? My heart raced as he glanced away, wrestling with unshed emotions that simmered just below the surface. I don't need your pity, he stated, though his voice trembled slightly, a fracture in his armor. Yet I sensed the raw vulnerability that he was desperately trying to conceal. It's not pity. It's understanding. Before I could finish, he interrupted again. Understanding? You don't even know me. His voice echoed through the quiet room, laden with what felt like years of loneliness. Do you know how many people want me for what I can give them? What they think they can gain? I didn't respond immediately. It felt as if the air had been sucked away entirely. Here was a man trapped in a gilded cage, one who thought he had to stand alone amidst the glitzy facade of his world. For the first time, I noticed the softening at the corners of his eyes, shadows painted by some past sorrow that clung to him like an unwelcome companion. Suddenly, from the audience, Ava's voice broke through the tension. Every single person in this room wants to know the real you, Lucian. She stepped forward, her voice unwavering. You've built walls that separate you from everyone. You've created a fortress, but you don't have to live alone inside it. Let us in. Let her in. The atmosphere hummed with unspoken possibilities. Would he take the chance for openness, or remain bound to the chains of his self-imposed isolation? I could see the gears turning in his mind, the hesitation wavering between fear and an almost desperate wish to be understood. Lucien's eyes met mine again, and the silent plea etched into his gaze sent a shockwave through me. I felt like I was standing on the edge of an infinite abyss, teetering between two worlds: the warmth of stepping into his heart, and the chill of rejection that loomed just beneath the surface. No, he finally said, his voice cracking slightly as he stepped back, creating a new chasm between us. I can't. You don't understand. Then help me understand. I tried again, desperation and uncertainty mingling within me. But he turned away, his posture abruptly closed off, and the chill returned as if a curtain had fallen, cutting us apart just as fast as it had briefly connected us. The tension in the room thickened again, heavier than before. As confusion washed over me, a sharp buzz erupted in my pocket. The very phone I had been anxiously waiting on remained unrelenting. I pulled it out, my heart sinking as I noticed the notification bearing my mother's name. Trembling, I opened the message, preparing to face whatever news it carried. But the words etched on the screen sent a fresh wave of panic surging through me. Don't forget about your father's health. The doctor revealed. Everything clicked, spiraling back into focus as the worry which had been a mere whisper suddenly erupted into a furious shout. My thoughts raced, colliding with the freezing reality of having to navigate not just Lucien's guarded world, but also the precariousness of my own family, the conference, the thoughts, and even Lucian felt entirely insignificant. Suddenly, the air suffused with dread as I felt myself teetering between two overwhelming issues. Lucian, I murmured, but his silhouette was already disappearing into the sea of people, his connection slipping away like grains of sand through my fingers from left here. Clutching fragments of hope and despair, the stage felt too small, the emotions too vast. Just as I turned away, my eyes caught a flicker of movement off to the side. Lucian paused, seemingly torn, standing at the edge of a path. Would he turn back, confronting not just his truth but my own struggle? He hesitated, and in that moment, I clung to the faint glimmer of something unspoken, the possibility that we could both face our demons together, and just as quickly, he vanished from view, leaving me enveloped in a tumult of emotions, and the stark realization that the journey had only just begun. The hall was still buzzing, but the once electric excitement now felt stifling, saturated with the remnants of heartache and uncertainty. As I stood there, my hand gripping the foam like a lifeline, reality curdled into an oppressive weight. The room around me seemed to spin, its walls inching closer, reminding me that while Lucian was poised at the precipice of vulnerability, I was teetering on my own brink, caught in a whirlwind of familial distress that loomed large over the newfound connection I craved. That I took a step back, struggling to breathe, each inhalation tinged with the urgency to rectify my own life's chaos before I ventured deeper into someone else's. In that moment, the audience was nothing but a blur of expression. Some showed pity, others confusion, and a few even empathy. But it all meant little compared to the storm brewing within my heart. The notification flickered ominously in my hand, and I could almost feel my mother's anxiety seep through the screen, the weight of her worry a sharp jab against my conscience. The words danced before my eyes, each letter pounding against the rhythm of my racing heart. The doctor revealed, my mind echoed, refusing to finish the painful thought. I had always known my father's health was precarious, but hearing it spelled out so explicitly intensified the gravity of my situation. I glanced toward the exit, where the throng of guests began to move, laughter and conversation juxtaposed against my bubbling anxiety. Lucian had slipped away, my moment with him dashed against the rocks of obligation. Yet beneath the layers of despair coiling around me, there lingered a longing, a need that burned like an ember in my chest. "Excuse me." I called out, my voice cracking as I made my way through the crowd, the urgency in my soul pushing me onward. Each step felt heavy, yet resolute. I had to find Lucian. He was standing alone near a sprawling window, his face shadowed by the light as he stared out into the night. The murmurs around us faded, and for a heartbeat, it was as if the world had come to a standstill. There he was, lost in thought, perhaps mulling over what we had just shared, or grappling with the turmoil that lay beneath his polished facade. "Lucian," I said, my voice warmer now, woven with threads of desperation and courage. He turned slowly, his expression revealing the once shut door cracking open. "What do you want?" The words were curt, but the tension in his voice revealed a flicker of curiosity, an invitation disguised as a barrier. "Please, can we talk?" My heart raced, torn between the pull of his enigmatic spirit and the pressing reality of my father's situation. I had ventured far enough into his world, and somehow, I needed him to step into mine, even if just for a moment. That he hesitated, the raw emotion flashing behind his stormy eyes giving way to the intricate layers of his existence. "What is there to talk about?" My heart squeezed painfully. "You feel so alone, and I understand that loneliness, Lucian. I can't fix it for you, but maybe we could help each other just for a moment." That a flicker of recognition crossed his face, a moment of vulnerability stark against his otherwise impenetrable exterior. "You don't know me, you don't know my story." "I know enough to see you're hurting," I urged, stepping closer, the chasm between us narrowing. "And him hurting too. My father, he's not well. I might lose him, and right now, it's all I can think about. But the weight of that isn't the only thing I carry. There's a pressing need for connection, and you have it in you to share." As I stared into his eyes, searching for some glimmer of understanding, his defenses slightly crumbled. For a brief moment, it felt as if we were suspended in time, two souls entangled in each other's pain. But then, the ghost of his past pressed a shadow over him again, and the softness evaporated. "You have your own burdens to carry," he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You don't need to take mine on as well." "Maybe I want to," I replied fiercely, as if my resolve might break the barrier between us. We could shoulder this together, if you'd just let me in. He shook his head, an agonized expression flickering across his features. It's not that easy. I'm not who you think I am. Then show me, I implored, feeling the shimmer of possibility slipping through my fingertips. Show me the truth behind the facade. I am struggling too. I can't do this alone. Just as another shudder of hope began to swell within me, a shrill ring interrupted our moment, the sound cutting cleanly through the palpable tension. Lucian stepped back, pulling his phone from his pocket, and as I watched, an unreadable expression washed over his face. "Excuse me," he murmured, his voice now warmer but tinged with something nearly frayed, and he turned away to answer the call. I stood there, rooted and motionless, feeling the world around me morph into a tapestry of loneliness. The connection we had just kindled felt tantalizingly close, only to be abruptly snatched away. As he spoke, I could see the shadows of his past converge around him, his body tightening as the conversation deepened, the layers of armor he wore falling back in place. A new fear gripped me then. What if I was never meant to truly break through? What if this was just another iteration of a connection doomed to end in misunderstanding? Standing there, helplessly watching him retreat, was a visceral reminder that sometimes, the ones we seek are the hardest to reach. And just as the call ended, I caught the corner of his mouth twitch a familiar flicker. It wasn't a smile. It was something else, something darker that seeped through the veneer of control. Before I could decipher it, he turned and walked away again, the lingering stares of the audience trailing behind him like a haunting reminder of what lay ahead. No. I gasped, as I felt the frantic urgency of my own life converge into a singular truth. Then came the notification again, my phone buzzing relentlessly in my hand, the words flashing on the screen anew. The doctor revealed, it might be too late. And as despair knotted itself tightly in my chest, the realization nestled deep into my bones. Time was running out for both of us, and it felt like it could drag us both down into the darkest depths of our fears. Forcing a sense of clarity amid chaos, I steeled myself, determined to not only fight for my family but to pry open the door to Lucien's shadows as well. But as I turned to chase after him, the air thickened as his silhouette continued to blur with each passing moment. I hurried forward, adrenaline rushing through my veins, desperate for answers and clarity, terrified of what awaited on the other side of those closed doors, and yet, in the fray of it all, a familiar feeling clawed at the edges of my consciousness, a sense that the revelations of the night were far from over, and that both my family's future and the tortured heart of a billionaire might hinge on choices not yet made. The night deepened further into shadows as I maneuvered through the thinning crowd, a swirling mass of excitement and shared heartache now muted against the backdrop of my racing thoughts. Each step felt like a plea for direction, for understanding. Where was Lucian going? Did he even want me to follow? I caught a glimpse of him at the edge of the hall, conversing with a figure cloaked in darkness, as though the night had summoned someone to steal him away. My heart stuttered at the sight, not wanting to let him slip through my fingers again. Just as I pushed through the throngs of revelers, a voice broke through the haze, a familiar tone nudging at the corners of my mind. Are you all right? The voice belonged to Clara, a longtime friend and fellow attendee. Her eyes bore the marks of worry, her brow furrowed in concern. Not really, I admitted, my voice breaking with fatigue and trepidation. I'm trying to talk to Lucian. Have you seen him? She glanced over her shoulder, searching for him amid the sea of faces. He just stepped out a minute ago. He seemed off. I heard he was having some family troubles of his own. The familiar pang of empathy bubbled within me for him, despite the anguish roiling around my own heart. I need to find him, I said, fighting to maintain my resolve. Maybe you should give him some space, Clara suggested gently, but her eyes remained fixed on me, imploring me to reconsider. Sometimes people need time to process that. I shook my head, the weight of my father's impending fate clashing with the need to connect with Lucian. No, I can't. Not now. Not when we both feel this deep ache and solitude. Okay, she relented, her brows furrowing slightly. But be careful. He's not always what he appears to be. With that, I pushed forward, the buzz of conversation fading into a muffled echo as I stepped out into the cool night air. The moon hung like a silver witness above, casting ethereal shadows across the terrace. For a fleeting moment, the world felt like it belonged to us alone, the pain, the fear, the uncharted connection, but as I scanned the darkness, an unexpected chill slithered up my spine. Lucian was nowhere in sight. Panic tightened its grip. Just as desperation began to seep in, I heard a muffled sound, a soft cry, barely a whisper, coming from the side of the building. Instinctively, I hurried toward the noise, following the silhouette of Lucian hunched against the wall, his hand pressing into his forehead, fingers tangled in dark hair. I hesitated for only a moment before stepping closer, the barriers between us still ironclad. Lucian. My voice was softer now, wrapped in tenderness. That he jerked his head up, eyes shimmering in the dim light, an ocean of emotion swirling beneath the surface. I felt my heart sink. What are you doing here? His question hung heavy between us, laden with the weight of his turmoil. That I came to find you, I said, my voice trembling slightly. I wanted to help if you'd let me. His gaze flickered with doubt, but I pressed ahead, desperation clawing at my throat. You don't have to shoulder it all alone. I know what it's like. Just let me in. He blinked, the walls around him shimmering as if in contemplation, but then refortified. It's too complicated. You don't know what you're getting into. Try me, I urged, stepping closer still. Sometimes, talking is the only way out from the shadows. I have my own struggles. I understand. Suddenly, a guttural sob escaped him, raw and unfiltered, breaking through the carefully curated facade he wore. My breath caught, and instinctively, I reached out. Lucian. He dropped his head again, shoulders heaving in silent sorrow, and I sensed the barriers cracking. It felt almost sacred to witness, an unraveling that needed to be honored. That I thought I could handle it all, he replied, his voice uneven, fragile like fine glass. But everything is falling apart. Me family, my life. And he swallowed hard, the moment stretching out in agonizing silence. There are things you don't know. Things that haunt me. That I felt the gravity of his words pressed down like a weight. I want to know, Lucian. I can help hold it up if you'll just trust me. But when he finally raised his gaze, the intensity was overwhelming. There was a flicker of terror mixed with something else, shame, perhaps, or bitterness. The turmoil spilled out into the very air between us, mixing with the scent of damp earth and fresh rain. Things are complicated, and you don't deserve that kind of mess, he murmured, shaking his head slowly. You don't know how far gone I am. Maybe I don't, but I want to understand, I said, pleading, the edge of urgency creeping in again. We could find our way through the darkness together, for just a heartbeat. His defenses quivered, and the luminous spark I saw before dimmed once more, swallowed by fear. That I need to go, he said sharply, receding once again, the distance re-establishing itself like a barrier I could not dismantle. Lucian, please, I called after him, but he was fading into the night, leaving words unspoken that hung heavily between us, creature-encumbered shadows weaving through the air. My heart raced as I wrestled with the encroaching despair. The reality that he was retreating back into his unknown could whisk away the flutter of connection we had come so close to forging. Then, a voice pierced the silence, an unexpected but familiar tone calling my name. Isabella. It was Clara, rushing toward me with urgency. Clara, but her expression shifted, a taut line flaring at the edges of her lips. The doctor they just called again, she said, her voice trembling slightly. It's about your father. We need to go. Every piece of my heart plummeted, leaving nothing but uncertainty swirling in the vacant space it had occupied. What do you mean? What did they say? Please, just come with me, she implored, her eyes wide and frantic, and as I turned, glancing back into the dark where Lucian had disappeared, a cold dread welled within me, a sense that all was in flux, that this whisper of hope for connection might vanish altogether, even as I teetered on the precipice of my own family's fate. Lucian, wait. I shouted into the void, but the night swallowed my words, leaving behind only echoes of what could have been a connection barely nurtured, dissolved into the churning tides of our separate storms. As Clara pulled me away, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something much darker, a revelation that threatened to unravel the very fabric of what I thought I understood about both love and loss. I had followed Clara through the winding paths of the garden, lost in a fog of impending dread and confusion. My heart raced not only from the fear for my father but also from the potent connection I had almost forged with Lucian. Each hurried step felt like a betrayal to that moment beneath the stars, as if walking away from the potential of something beautiful, something real. Isabella, we really need to get to the hospital, Clara urged, her voice a sharp tug on my fraying resolve. What did the doctor say? I asked, my voice barely rising above a whisper. Anxiety knotted my stomach as we neared the exit of the expansive estate, the lights dimming behind me as if to signal that this night was already over. He just mentioned complications. They're worried about his condition, Clara said, and I could see the raw fear in her eyes, her concern for me, for the weight I would have to carry. We need to be prepared for anything, okay? Prepared for anything. The gravity of those words felt like a precipice, the ground beneath my feet cracking with every step toward the unknown. But in my heart, or perhaps in the shadows of my thoughts, a flicker of hope remained, a flicker that Lucian felt the same kind of ache, that perhaps we could find solace in each other's struggles, however tangled. As we reached the car, the cool air wrapped around us, ruffling my hair like a chiding whisper. I can't believe it's come to this, I murmured, a tear escaping before I could wipe it away, leaving a mark on my cheeks. Clara reached over, squeezing my hand, and I drew strength from her warmth. That I am here for you, always, she reassured me, but her voice faltered as she watched me. And if you need time to process what you want with Lucian once this is done, I'll help you with that too. Thank you, Clara, I breathed, already knowing that processing was the last thing I would manage as my heart swelled with conflicting emotions. I had to talk to Lucian again, had to let him know he wasn't alone. But now, my father's fragility weighed heavy like a dense fog, slipping through my fingers as I reached for it. The drive to the hospital felt like an eternity, each passing block filled with the sinking realization that life could change in an instant. The prospect of hope blurred into the stark, harsh lights of reality. Clara's voice became a distant echo, offering reassurances I barely registered as my mind spiraled wildly around Lucian's haunted visage. At last, we arrived, and as we stepped into the sterile halls of the hospital, the familiar humming of fluorescent lights served as a reminder of life interspersed with inevitable loss. I could feel the dream of a new bond slipping through the cracks, and yet, there was a surprising resilience blooming within me, a strength ignited by love that wouldn't easily die. Clara led me to the waiting room, where apprehension buzzed in the air like errant electricity. Family members huddled together, faces drawn tight with worry. The nurse's gaze flicked to us with faint recognition as she said something to Clara, her expression revealing news that settled heavily between us, though I couldn't grasp its weight yet. Isabella. A low voice called, piercing through the ambient noise. My mother, standing up from a shadowed corner, looking frilier than ever, her eyes fogged with exhaustion. Mom! I rushed into her arms, but the embrace felt hollow, the dark uncertainty looming thicker than ever. The lines on her face told stories of sleepless nights and worry, and in that moment, the fragility of everything loomed larger than life. Just as she whispered reassurances into my hair, a sudden crash echoed down the hall, sending a ripple of gasps through the waiting room. Clara stiffened beside me, her eyes wide with shock as the doors burst open. A young man, lanky, with messily styled hair, wearing a wild look of panic, came barreling in, his breath coming in frantic bursts. Isabella. I was looking for you. He shouted, his eyes meeting mine with an intensity that shocked me. It was Marco, Lucian's brother, a figure from my past I hadn't expected to see tonight. What do you mean? I asked, stumbling over my words as confusion pressed heavily against my mind. What are you doing here, Lucian? He gasped, clearly overwhelmed. He's gone. The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. Gone. My mind wrestled against the implications of his words. What do you mean gone? He just left, took off into the night, Marco continued, his voice breaking, anguish lacing through his tone. I thought maybe he would come to you, you're the only one he'd listen to. But he hasn't been answering my calls. Each word fell into my heart like stones, heavy and unrelenting. Lucian, burdened and overwhelmed, felt his own darkness swallowing him whole. My earlier resolve shattered, replaced by an overwhelming sorrow. It felt wrong to hold on to hope when he was so far away, slipping further into whatever fear bound him. No, I whispered, terror gripping my mind. He can't be, Isabella, we have to find him, Clara urged, grabbing my hand and squeezing it tightly, as if to tether me back to reality, to purpose. But my essence felt split. My father's precarious health painted against Lucian's escape into the night created a tempest of impossibility I could hardly navigate. That I need to know that he's safe, I said, a dire conviction embedding itself in my heart, fighting against the anxious despair encasing me. We have to help him, Clara, and as I looked back at Marco's darkened eyes, now beseeching, their desperation echoed my own. The night loomed ahead, darkness spilling forth like an omen of impending loss, a revelation, like a heavy fog, fogging every path I might take. But at that moment, I felt my heart owning a singular truth: I could not turn away. I wouldn't let Lucian drown in sorrow, not when we had come so close to something worthy of fighting for. Let's find him, I declared, stepping forward into the unknown, resolute amidst the turmoil. Each step into the abyss deepened my need to untangle our threads of disillusionment, to break through the opaque darkness that had captured him. But as we ventured into the twisted maze of hospital corridors, I couldn't shake the creeping sense of foreboding, as if the very forces that sought to unravel us were already in motion, weaving a scheme darker than I could ever have anticipated. The hospital loomed before us, a monolith of stark lights and sterile sounds, and I felt like an intruder in my own life. Each hurried footstep reverberated against the cold tiles, matching the frenetic pulse of my heart. Clara was on my right, her presence a comforting weight, while Marco filled the space on my left, eyes darting with unvoiced fears. The urgency of each tick of the clock echoed louder than the soft murmurs of other families in the waiting area. Where could he have gone? I questioned, more to myself than anyone else. It felt surreal that, amidst this chaos, my heart was still flickering with the remnants of the bond one had almost forged with Lucian. He was slipping through my fingers, just like time. He loves his solitude, Marco mused, his brow furrowed in concentration. When things get too heavy, he tends to run away to think. But he can't be alone right now. Not like this. Maybe we should check the park, Clara suggested, her voice laced with urgency. It's where he always found peace when we were younger. A flash of nostalgia washed over my images of Lucian sitting beneath the old oak tree, sketchbook in hand, lost in his art. Those moments felt like another lifetime, before the weight of our histories drew us apart. Let's go, I said, a newfound determination mingling with the fear gripping my chest. As we made our way to the car, I couldn't help but steal glances at Marco. While I had long convinced myself that Lucian was just a complex puzzle waiting for understanding, his brother seemed a living embodiment of frantic desperation. What did he see in Lucian that I had missed? What burden did he carry? The drive felt surreal, a blur of streetlights and darkness swallowing the world around us. And yet, within the depths of that darkness, I clung to the memories of Lucien's laughter, his gentle teasing that held the promise of joy. We'll find him, Clara reassured me when her fingers brushed against my arm, grounding me as we pulled up to the park. The shadows were deepening, nearby trees twisted in the wind like ancient sentinels, watching over our search. What if he's in trouble? Marco's voice trembled, a pang of fear hitting me squarely in the chest. Well, call his phone again, I suggested, my heartbeat matching the bumbling rhythm of anxiety. He has to answer. I fiddled with my phone, every ring seeping through the night air like droplets, but each unanswered call pushed a thick cloud over my hope. I knew I shouldn't panic, yet the thought of Lucian alone in the dark, battling whatever demons had driven him away, sent icy tendrils creeping up my spine. Look. Clara pointed down a fork in the path, and there, illuminated by the faint glow of a street lamp, was a figure, slumped against the base of the old oak tree. My heart surged with both dread and hope. Lucian. I called out, my voice breaking the heavy silence like glass shattering. He stirred at the sound, lifting his head slowly. Even from a distance, the weight of his sorrow was palpable. His countenance, once vibrant, was a canvas of shadows and regret, mirrored only by the moonlight above. The vulnerability etched on his face tugged at my an inexplicable desire to pull him from the pain that threatened to envelop him entirely surged within me. As we approached, I saw him wipe a tear away with the back of his hand, and in that moment, I felt an overwhelming wave of empathy. Every conflict I had felt regarding my own life suddenly merged into this singular moment, where our joys and our sadness dance together in a painful rhythm, Isabella?" He croaked, his voice hoarse and trembling. There was a flicker of recognition in his eyes, but it was quickly overshadowed by despair. I didn't mean to worry you, it's okay, Lucian," I responded, my voice steady in a way I didn't entirely feel. "We just want to help you. You don't have to go through this alone." His gaze fell, and behind the sorrow, I caught a glimpse of something more, regret tangled with raw vulnerability that stripped away our previous encounters. It was a turning point, and I felt the pull of our shared silences drifting closer again, yet fear of losing each other loomed like a shroud. "Help?" he echoed, his voice wavering. "I don't deserve it." Stop," I interrupted gently, kneeling before him as Marco and Clara stood behind me, silent witnesses to our unfolding moment. "You deserve love and support just as much as anyone else. Whatever you're facing, well, face it together." He looked up, the moonlight illuminating streams of tears that traced his cheeks. "I've failed everyone," he confessed, and I could feel the fissures within him deepening, threatening to swallow not just him but also me if I allowed it. I reached for his hands, seeking to anchor him in the weight of our presence. "Life isn't about perfection," I said, my voice steady despite the frantic thoughts swirling inside my heart. "It's about how we navigate through the darkness together." But before he could reply, a sudden shout pierced the silence. "Lucian!" A figure emerged from the shadows, his father, red-eyed and frantic, charging towards us with an urgency that sent a chill down my spine. "What are you doing here? Come back with me. You can't just run away like this." In that moment, everything shifted. I could feel the weight of impending chaos as tension prickled the air, the deep-rooted family conflicts surfacing right before my eyes, oblivious to my presence. Lucian flinched as his father approached, a storm of emotions brewing between them, reminding me of the fracture lines that had yet to be healed. "That I don't want to," Lucian stammered, exposing his vulnerability further, his voice shrinking like a candle flickering in the wind. Just like that, a new wave of conflict crashed over us, father and son lost in a tempest of expectations and unmet dreams, while I stood at the intersection of their pain, yearning to bridge the gap but uncertain of how. But in that moment of tension, I resolved to fight to be the lifeline that Lucian so desperately needed, even if the path was cluttered with the shards of family legacy, unhealed wounds, and unspoken fears. "Whatever happens next, I want leave," I uttered, locking eyes with Lucian to convey my unyielding commitment amid the chaos surrounding us, an oath amidst the storm. And yet, deep within, I realized just how frail my own hope remained, hovering over the abyss of unanswered questions and unresolved longings, waiting to see if it would withstand the winds of change. The air felt charged with unspoken words and unresolved pain as Lucian's father towered over us, his presence a reminder of the weight of expectations that had always loomed in Lucian's life. I felt an urge to intervene, to shield him from the storm I sensed brewing, but the moment hung heavily, thick with tension and unrelenting fear. "Why are you doing this, Lucian?" his father demanded, voice tight with anger and concern, juxtaposed against the stillness of night. "You can't run from your responsibilities. You think disappearing solves anything?" Each word sliced through the cool air like a knife, igniting the old wounds that can't seem to heal. Lucian flinched, shrinking beneath his father's gaze as if those familiar shadows had come racing back to reclaim him. In that moment, I felt helpless, the walls of our fragile bond shaken by the echoes of familial dysfunction. "It's not about running away," Lucian replied, his voice cracking as he finally found some anchor in the tumult. "It's about trying to find a part of myself that's been lost in this battle. I can't breathe with all this pressure." His father's expression faltered for just a second, the anger wavering to reveal something softer, fear perhaps, or even anxiety. It was a crack in the wall of indifference that had long shielded his heart. "You think I don't care?" he pressed, and I saw him wrestle with the haunting knowledge of their fractured history. "Caring is more than wanting something for someone," Lucian shot back, a spark igniting in his eyes as he turned the tides, both vulnerable and fierce. I was struck by the sheer strength it required to stand his ground, to finally confront the man whose approval felt like an invisible shackle. Clara's hand gripped mine tightly in silent support, and I squeezed back, feeling our connectedness serve as a lifeline amidst the emotional chaos. "I want you to see what I see," Lucian continued, his voice gathering momentum, emboldened by the presence of those who cherished him: Marco, Clara, and myself. I need to live my life, not the one you envision for me. I want to create. I want to be me. There was a shift in the air, a moment where hope flickered to life briefly, illuminated by the vulnerability that had been summoned into the dark night. And then, like flipping a switch, his father stepped back, eyes a kaleidoscope of confusion and fear. If you reject what I want for you, then where does that leave us? Lucien's breath hitched. The space between them felt dense as we all awaited his answer. It leaves me free to choose, free to heal, he whispered, almost as if he were reconciling those very feelings within himself, grappling with the significance of breaking that bond. And what if your choices hurt you? His father shot back, desperation creeping into his voice. Then he'll take that risk. The air around us felt charged with hope and fear intertwined, and I could sense Lucian teetering on the brink of making a monumental decision that would define not just his life, but theirs as well. I leaned closer to him, the weight of the moment hanging thick between us, knowing that this collective confrontation left all of us vulnerable. Whatever you need to decide, Lucian, we're here, I whispered, my heart racing, steering away the chaotic anxieties still hovering above us like storm clouds. But is that the end? Clara added, her eyes soft with empathy as she stepped forward. Is that what you truly want? To sever ties, Lucian looked from her to me, then to Marco, who stood rooted with eyes reflecting a whirlwind of unvoiced emotions. I'm not sure, he admitted, chewing on the edge of uncertainty. But I know I can't live like this anymore. It's suffocating. His father's face twisted as if struck by a physical blow, pain flashing through his eyes. Older, tired. Then let's find a way to meet in the middle. Work together instead of against each other. Lucian hesitated, a torrent of emotions crashing through him like waves against a shore. It was a moment of reckoning where change loomed tantalizingly close yet felt terrifying, his next words holding the power to reshape everything. Maybe he began, the tremor in his voice betraying his uncertainty. But I need time. His father echoed, a flicker of disbelief surfacing. Time isn't what you need. Your responsibilities await. As the weight of their words collided, I felt a flash of frustration wash over me. I had yearned to shield Lucian from this chaos, yet here he was, drenched in the very storm he sought to escape. You have the right to step away, I assured him, afraid that each passing second of indecision spiraled the moment into uncertainty. Prioritize what you need first. Just then, an unfamiliar voice emerged from the depths of the darkness. What a lovely family reunion, the figure emerged, his silhouette blurred in the shadows. The tone, dripping with sarcasm, sent chills down my spine. Lucien's father turned abruptly, narrowing his eyes. Who the hell are you? An observer, the man answered nonchalantly, stepping into the light, revealing a face etched in harsh lines that belied an aura of power. Is it too late to the party? Or is there still room for some truths? Lucian stiffened, eyes widening with a mix of recognition and dread. No, not you. The unexpected twist infused the night with a sudden chill, layering our moment with new tension and uncertainty. In this unfolding revelation, the question loomed heavily: what was the truth this stranger intended to unveil? And would it pull us further into the intricate web of Lucien's life, or unravel the very fabric of who he was trying so desperately to become? As I locked eyes with Lucian, I could feel walls trembling as shadows drew near. One thought danced across my mind in a frightened whisper: just how deep was the chasm we were about to slip into? The night deepened, an oppressive blanket enveloping us, thick with unspoken fears and bewildering revelations. The stranger stood there, his presence a complicating thread in the fabric of our confrontation. I could see Lucien's heart race as recognition flickered across his features. Who was this man, and what secrets did he carry? Cyrus, Lucian breathed, a mix of surprise and dread saturating his voice. You shouldn't be here, regrettably. I'm an uninvited guest, Cyrus replied, a smirk playing on his lips that made my spine tingle. But this seems like a vital family affair. Perhaps I can shed some light. What do you want? Lucian snapped, an assertiveness rising from the shadows of his uncertainty. This isn't your business. But isn't it? You see, Lucian, you and I have a history, one that you've seemed quite adept at forgetting. Or is that the plan? To erase the parts of you that don't fit into your neat little narrative. The air electrified with tension as Lucian's father took a menacing step forward. You're out of line, he growled. Whatever past dealings you have with my son are over. This is not a place for your games. Cyrus countered with an eerie calmness. I assure you, sir, this is anything but. This is about understanding the truth lurking beneath your son's choices, his decisions to sever ties and run away. Don't you want to know what drove him to this? I could feel the weight of Lucien's turmoil manifesting through the clenched fists at his sides, a storm brewing within him at the audacity of Cyrus' barbs. Stop it! Lucian shouted, his voice a sudden explosion of raw emotion. You don't get to twist my narrative, but you're not the only one with stakes in this conflict, Cyrus replied, his gaze boring into Lucien's as though peeling back every carefully constructed layer. You think breaking free will give you solace? It only creates more chaos. That I could see the turmoil flashing across Lucien's face, a cocktail of anger, desperation, and genuine grief. Clara stepped closer, as though to physically reinforce Lucien's strength with her kindness. Lucian, you don't have to let him dictate your path. Please don't let him manipulate you. But it was not just a battle of words, it felt as if an unseen card had been laid down on the table. Lucien's hands shook slightly, his emotions writhing beneath the surface. What do you know about chaos? He muttered, almost to himself, searching for a semblance of control in the churning tide within him. I know that chaos can reveal the truth, Cyrus replied, his voice dripping with knowing. And sometimes truth doesn't conform to our expectations. But it's there nonetheless. And you're only scratching the surface. Stop this, Lucien's father interjected again, a note of desperation creeping into his tone as if he felt the very ground they shared was shifting beneath them. You have no authority here. Authority doesn't come from privilege, it comes from knowledge, Cyrus answered, his eyes glittering with an unsettling light. And you, my friend, are about to learn more than you bargained for. Get out. Now, Lucian commanded, a fire igniting within him, and I felt the undercurrent of strength surging through our bond. He had the power to reject this invasive force, but Cyrus merely chuckled, drawing closer to Lucian, a specter of shadows. And what if I told you that your path to healing is intricately entwined with your past, the very thing you're trying to escape? What do you want from me? Lucien's voice cracked, splitting the intensity of the moment into something almost fragile. That I want you to understand why you feel you don't belong anywhere. Why you feel lost. It's not just familial expectations. It's deeper, darker, he said, a strange empathy in his voice that unsettled me. What if I told you that the very chains you seek to break were forged by blood? Your father is not the only one holding the reins. There was a collective intake of breath around us, the air charged with confusion, fear, and something else, perhaps hope, or suffering that needed to wrestle free. I noted the flicker of recognition flash through Lucien's eyes, a soul wrestling with the possibility of a much larger truth lurking just beyond the horizon of his consciousness. Lucian shook his head, desperate to silence the chaos storming inside him. What are you saying? Just that there's more to this story than you know or chose to remember, Cyrus replied, his tone deceptively calm. How far would you go to uncover it? What if knowing could change everything? As that question lingered in the air, a silence stretched between us, filled only by the rhythmic pounding of Lucien's heartbeat. I could feel the weight of his indecision, a call from a part of him that only he could hear. The pathway ahead lay fogged, shadows bleeding into the light as the truth wrestled for its moment to emerge. That I took a step towards him, my heart pounding in my chest. Whatever it is, Lucian, I'm here. I'll stand by you, I said, the conviction in my voice solidifying my resolve to support him through the tempest, but my words hung in the air like a tether, fragile yet unyielding as Lucien's gaze sparked with uncertainty. What if this truth, he began slowly, is something I'm too afraid to face? Before anyone could respond, an abrupt sound shattered the silence. A loud crash echoed from the direction of the darkened path we had come from, as if answering his question in a voice that was far from gentle, and there it was, the cliff we stood upon steepening dangerously, insight crashing upon us like waves in a storm. Whatever awaited us in the enigmatic depths ahead, one truth sat heavy upon that precarious edge: the course of Lucien's life hung in the balance, and the discovery of what lay hidden within those shadows could either illuminate his path or bury him beneath the weight of his family's legacy and secrets. The sound of the crash echoed in the hollow silence, sending a ripple of apprehension quivering through us all. Lucien spun on his heels, instinctively taking a protective stance in front of Clara, the remnants of tension transforming into a collective urgency. "What was that?" he asked sharply, his voice hoarse yet steady, bridging vulnerability with the instinct to confront whatever fear lurked just beyond our vision. Cyrus, unfazed, leaned back against the weathered trunk of a nearby tree, a slight smirk still etched on his features. "Ah, the past has a way of catching up when you least expect it." Before another word could escape my lips, the shadows shifted, and from them emerged a figure draped in darkness. At first, it was merely a silhouette, but as the shape approached, the details came into sharper focus: a young woman with a fierce expression, her hair wind-tossed and wild, her eyes wild as she locked onto Lucien with an intensity that sent my mind spinning. "Lucien," she called, explicit urgency threaded through her tone. "We need to talk. Now." "Becca." Lucien's voice broke around her name, disbelief clashing against a flurry of emotions surging through him. "What are you doing here?" The newcomer wasted no time with pleasantries. Her breath came in shallow gasps as if the weight of everything she carried threatened to crush her. "I ran into something about our families." "It's bad, Lucien. Really bad. Something you have to know." "What do you mean?" Lucien pressed, his muscled frame grounding him as he reached for her arms, desperation clawing at the edges of his composure. "What happened?" Before she could answer, Clara stepped forward, her nurturing instinct compelling her to reach out as well. "Maybe we should. I don't care about the maybes right now." Becca cut in sharply, her eyes darting toward Cyrus, then back to Lucien. "You don't understand. I barely got out. They're coming for you. For all of us." My heart raced in sync with the panic that radiated from our increasingly fractured gathering. A veil of unease settled within me as I glanced at Cyrus, who seemed to relish the unfolding chaos as if he knew more than he was letting on. Was this another twist in a dark narrative orchestrated by him, or did Becca carry a truth we had yet to comprehend? "What do you mean they're coming?" Lucien's voice was hoarse, his resolve wavering before the whirlwind of fear encroaching on every aspect of his existence. "They're not just coming for you, Lucien, they're coming for the answers. The truth about your family," Becca said urgently. "And it's ugly. They'll try to erase any trace of it, anyone who threatens to expose it. I couldn't just stand by." Lucien's expression flipped from bewilderment to cold fury, the pain of old confrontation splintering at the edges of his control. "Who are you talking about? What have you seen?" "They know you're pulling away, that you're seeking deeper truths," Becca pressed, each word tumbling out like a boulder off a cliff, rapid and unstoppable. "It's your parents. They're involved in things you can't even begin to imagine." I could feel the intensity of Lucien's conflict brewing, boiling beneath the surface like a tempest desperate to break free. And there it lay again, the specter of chaos, wider, deeper, and darker than we could have anticipated. I grabbed his hand tightly, not wanting him to untether himself from the solidity of our anchor. "Lucien," I whispered, my voice trembling with a weight I hoped to alleviate. "Whatever you choose, we'll face it together. No matter how dark it gets." He offered a brief nod, though the strain on his features betrayed his uncertainty. "I don't want to drag you into this, into whatever twisted web our families have created." "Too late," Clara countered, unwavering. "We're in this together." Before Lucien could respond, a low, sinister laugh cut through the air, unwinding the protective cocoon we formed. Cyrus stood fully upright now, his expression gaining a predatory edge as if this whole moment had been choreographed to lead us here, to this precipice of revelation. "You see, Lucien, chaos is indeed a frightening force. But it's also a catalyst for transformation. Are you ready to embrace it?" Before Lucien could answer, Becca's eyes widened in alarm, a sense of foreboding wrapping around her every word. "No. You don't understand. The danger isn't just an abstract threat, but in the blink of an eye, the ground beneath us trembled as footsteps echoed from the very path Becca had just fled. Shadows morphed, thickening with intent as figures stepped forward, their eyes glinting dangerously in the faint light, revealing the grim realities of our entangled destinies. Everything crashed together in one horrifying moment. The sound of Lucien's heartbeat echoed in my ears, mingling with the rising fear that now felt tangible, as if it too had stepped out of the darkness, holding us hostage in an impending storm. We were standing at the threshold of our reckoning, the past rearing its head, poised to swallow us whole. That I took a deep breath, readying myself for whatever unforeseen consequences lay in wait, but Lucien's response was no longer the question of uncertainty, it was the roar of a tempest gathering strength, ready to break the silence. And in that moment, with the shadows closing in, it became abundantly clear, the fight was just beginning, and the truth, however dark, was waiting to be unearthed. I woke from the fog of disorientation, blinking against the bright lights of the hospital room that felt unreal, as if I had been thrust into a different world altogether. The sterile walls, the faint beeping of machines, the hushed murmurs of nurses outside it all swirled around me, a cacophony that tugged me further into the reality I had been dreading. I was alone for a moment, my thoughts racing as I grappled with the aftermath of the unfathomable night, with heart pounding, the memory of Lucien's father shouting at him, the revelation of Becca's warning, and the threatening shadow of the approaching figures became a churn of worry. Lucien had been vulnerable, stripped of his facade, and now both of our worlds were intertwined in ways I never could have imagined. My heart ached for him, for the distance that loomed larger than ever when I couldn't be there to help him shoulder the truth, but the moment I remembered my own reality, the weight of dread gripped me, tightening its grip around my throat. I had come here seeking to support him, showing him that he wasn't alone, yet I felt lost when faced with my own unfolding tragedy. My father was battling an illness that had crept into our lives like a thief in the night, taking pieces of him away until I doubted what was left. Just the thought of it threatened to swallow me whole. My breath hitched, and I squeezed my eyes shut, fighting against the tide of grief that sought to consume me. Somewhere in the dimness of my thoughts, I knew I had to rise above, navigate my despair on my own terms. I curled my hands into fists, gathering the remnants of my strength, however frail. I wouldn't be defeated, I wouldn't let the darkness win. Isabella. A soft voice pierced through my reverie, and I jolted, turning my gaze towards the door. Clara stood there, relief washing over her features as she made her way into the room. "You're awake." "I was so worried. We didn't know if you'd come." To her words trailed off, her eyes brimming with concern. That I breathed deeply, allowing the air to fill me with a sense of clarity. "What happened? How is my father?" "He's stable for now. They were able to address the complications, but he'll need time to recover," she said, her voice tight but laced with hope. "You need to eat something, maybe take a shower. You haven't had a moment for yourself." I shook my head slightly, feeling the desire to push aside personal thoughts. "Is Lucien okay?" A flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. I am not sure. Last I heard, they were looking for him after Becca found us." Just then, the door swung open again, and in walked Marco, his expression a mix of worry and determination. "We need to talk." "About Lucien?" That I straightened, adrenaline coursing through my veins. "What do you mean, Cyrus?" "He's still lurking in the shadows, and I think he has more up his sleeve." "I'm worried Lucien may act recklessly," Marco said, his voice laced with fear. "They found a threat connected to him, and if Lucien walks into it without knowing, it could end badly." The news landed like a stone in my gut, and I struggled to wrap my mind around the implications of it all. "We can't let him face this alone." Clara stepped forward, her eyes narrowing with conviction. "Then we have to find him. If there's anything that happened in that park, we can't leave him to navigate this conflict without the support he needs." Determination surged within me, a fire igniting my resolve. I couldn't allow Lucien to succumb to those shadows that threatened him. Just as I had to step up for my father, I had to be there for Lucien. Now more than ever, we were fighting for 2 lives. "Let's go," I stated, urgency propelling me to my feet. "Walking away isn't an option we can afford." In minutes, we made our way through the halls, navigating the various floors until we descended to the street outside. The weight of the night lay like an anchor, a heavy reminder of everything that had transpired. Clara and Marco flanked me, their presence grounding me, though the air hummed with uncertainty at the thought of what we might find that we drove toward the park, the familiar streets morphing into a blur as my mind spun, weaving together memories of laughter with the fear of finding Lucian lost in darkness. As the park loomed ahead, I could only hope we would arrive in time. The moments crawled by as we hurried toward the old oak tree, its gnarled branches reaching into the night sky, a sentinel of solace standing against the chaos. But as we stepped into the clearing, the sense that something was terribly wrong washed over us, striking at the very core of my existence. There, beneath the moonlight, stood Lucian, but he wasn't alone. Backlit by the glow of the street lamp, he faced off against a man I clearly recognized, the shadow behind the chaos, the wolf in sheep's clothing. "Lucian, don't!" I shouted, fear clawing at my throat as I raced forward. The stranger turned slightly at the sound of my voice, revealing a familiar sneer as he eyed me with malicious glee. "Isn't this lovely? A family reunion." I could see Lucien's jaw clench as his stormy gaze raked over me, a mix of anguish and fear. "Isabella, stay back. You shouldn't be here." But I wasn't backing down this time. The strands of darkness woven through our lives felt alive now, tangible between us all. "You're not alone in this. Not anymore." Cyrus swept his arm forward, redirecting Lucien's attention. "You don't need to listen to her. None of this concerns you, Isabella. You haven't a clue what you're stepping into." I could feel the tension in the air saturating the night, heavy with dale-chilling shadows surrounding us. But somewhere deep within me surged the belief that we could withstand any conflict against darkness. I wouldn't give up on us now that I know what I'm doing. Together we'll confront the truth, we'll fight against the uncertainty that wants to tether you to fear. Lucien's eyes flickered to mine, the raw fear shifting into determination. "I am not going to let him silence me. Or you." He moved closer, inching away from Cyrus' influence as we bridged the gap between the forming storm and our determination. "Exactly," Marco chimed in. "We can't let anyone dictate who we are or what defines our connections." "Brave words for someone who stands on the edge of ruin," Cyrus warned, a malevolent sense of satisfaction dangling in the air. "Think carefully before you dive headfirst into this chaos. You have no control over how dark these waterways run." But Lucian stood firm, collected as if he had finally uncovered the strength buried beneath personalized pain. "I don't need to control everything, I just need to own my truth, and right now, I stand with my friends." In that moment, clarity washed over me like a soft tidal wave, forcing the shadows to recede. He was taking charge, facing the darkness with both vulnerability and acceptance, and the path ahead, however daunting, felt illuminated in the love we created together out of shared pain. "Be with us, Lucian," I urged gently, my hand reaching for his again. "Let's choose to fight together. Not alone." The stakes were high, but no longer did I feel afraid. Cyrus' expression hardened, realizing that his grip on Lucian began to slip. He opened his mouth to speak but stopped short when Lucien's steadfast resolve resonated around us. "Whatever is buried there, deep down, we will confront it or refuse to be lost in its shadows." The determination sent ripples through the ambivalence surrounding those poised to strike. It had become more than a confrontation, it was a battle of wills. The balance of power shifted imperceptibly. With each word, the darkness quaked as if facing a wave crashing against its fortress walls, undermining its foundations. And then, just as abruptly as the moment began, an unexpected sense of hands clasping mine joined Yuzel at once. The warmth of Clara's grasp, Marco's unwavering support, and the bond of our shared fears and dreams transitioned into a shield of trust around Lucian. We were fiercely united, standing on the precipice of unveiling not just the truth of our families but the fierce fire ignited by our collective bond. It was in that unity, in that acceptance of vulnerability, where the shadows dissipated, allowing the light of possibility to breathe freely, a light that wrapped around all of us, casting hope over fear as we prepared to confront whatever came next. Together, I whispered fiercely, ever loyal to our collective truth, and just like that, the darkness echoed back with the poignant reminder that shadows are only temporary. To be bound is to be loved, and in that moment, I knew we were standing ready to unearth the profound truth that lay beneath our tangled fates together.